Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2U's of 2U's Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2U's Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Marsha. I'm celebrating. I should be having champagne.
No, you don't like champagne. You need to have something you like.
Well, I'm having coffee, which
That's
is fine. It's perfect. Exactly
Well,
what I want. And I'm having it in my mug that I got at the thrift store, the same downtown shop where I got the Niebling tablecloth.
Mm-hmm.
That same day, I bought 2 mugs, and they're sort of Mexican pottery style with a blue flower with a pink center and then a pink bud and green leaves. Well, they're restaurant china, and I think they would have been like Mexican restaurant china. But I thought since it's not only just the first day of my spring break, but it's also the actual first day of spring, that it would be appropriate.
Yes, and things, daffodils are up here in Seattle, and trees are, like cherry trees are beginning to bloom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're
exciting.
on kind of the same flower schedule this year, because all of our the plums have already the earliest plums are already done. The Santa Rosa plum, the new one, is fully bloomed. The apricot has started. And then just the other day, the cherries that are later, the cherry trees in the little orchard area of our backyard, the cherry trees have a few blossoms opening. So, yeah. And I have one last batch of daffodils that are kind of in a more shady area in the yard. And I think they're also a later variety because they haven't come up yet.
Yeah, yeah.
But all the rest of them are done.
I was, as you know, all last week we were down at the beach. But the week prior to that, I did a cleanup in the backyard. And all the ferns, like I cut off the fronds from last year, so then there's space for the new ones to come up. And I cut down a bush, and I did a bunch of cleanup in the back garden and everything. But what I'm really excited about is, I always have the pots on the deck with all the annuals in there. And that's the real color in the backyard, is the pots. And last year I was not able to do that because I didn't have a deck.
Right.
So I'm very excited this year to plant those pots. It's one of my favorite things to do. So anyway,
yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, you usually do that, like in April?
Yeah,
or May?
April, May, May, sort of depending on. Well, and then the other thing, because I'm in a different house than I used to be in, the vegetable garden at the other house was a great spot. It was on the south side of the house. I don't have as much space, and so this last summer I put tomatoes. There's a 3 or 4 foot wide concrete path on the south side of the garage. And so I put tomatoes out there last year. I guess I've had them there the last 2 years. And they do really well because they're up against the house. But I always remember I would go to the nursery near the house, and they always would have the tomatoes in the greenhouses, and they were really particular that they didn't really want you to buy the tomatoes until all danger of frost had passed, so that the nights didn't drop below 50. Well, in Seattle, that's a little hard. I mean, you're really putting them in July, late June, early July for the nights not to drop below 50. And so one year I got impatient, and I just went and I bought some tomatoes at Fred Meyer, and they'd had them sitting out there since March, sitting out in their the garden spot. And then I also bought some from the nursery I put them in late June, early July. Guess which ones did better?
The Fred Meyer ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that they had, and so the theory the nursery said is they've been grown in a hothouse and then you shock them by putting them outside, right? And so then they don't grow as fast and produce as much. My feeling is that they must have been shocked so early.
They had gotten over it.
That they they got going then, I don't know. It was just funny that those cheap tomatoes from Fred Meyer that had been sitting out in the cold in March did fantastic. So
that's funny. Yeah, by the time you bought them, they had gotten over their shock, or all the weak ones had died, and you got the strong.
Yeah,
the Darwin tomatoes.
Yeah, my Darwin tomatoes.
My mom says, she always says, and she has a really warm backyard.
Yeah.
She lives just north of San Jose, and it gets pretty warm there. And she lives in Fremont, which is where I lived growing up, where I grew up. But she lives in a different part of Fremont with a little different climate, and it's much warmer. Mm-hmm. And she even still says you don't plant tomatoes until May 1st because the soil has to warm up.
Yeah.
Even if the exterior temperature, the air temperature is fine, it's the soil temperature that needs to be right for tomatoes. And if you plant them early, you don't get any benefit from that.
Yeah.
But
that's exactly what they were saying.
Yeah.
But
But you did clearly benefit from your Fred Meyer tomatoes. Well, one more plant thing here. This is a knitting podcast, but one more plant thing related is we have a company called Annie's Annuals in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I would dearly love to actually go up there. They have a nursery and a mail order business. And they have a beautiful catalog, and I always get tempted. I've bought a lot of things from them, and I do like their plants, and they pack them really nicely, and they ship really well. But I do find I have some of the same varieties that I've bought at native plant sales. Mm-hmm. And then I'll buy, another one, I want another one of these, and Annie's Annuals has it, and so I order it and it comes, and they're kind of wimpy. Mm-hmm. They are used to being in this really lush, well cared for environment. If you look at the nursery and you look at their catalog, the pictures of their nursery on the website and everything in their catalog, everything is just really lush and beautiful and thickly planted, and you just get the feeling that these plants are really well cared for. And then they come to my yard where, a native plant has got to hold its own. I don't do supplemental watering in much of the backyard at all. They get what they get in spring, and then they have to make it all the way. They have to make it all the way till the rains. And there have been a lot of times where the things that I've bought from Annie's Annuals, they haven't made it. So, now when I buy from them, I treat the plants a little nicer, and I kind of slowly wean them off of care.
Yeah, you can't just throw them into the desert.
No, I have to give them a little bit of pampering. But it is true; they do seem to be more used to fertilizer and water, and so they're little princess plants.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to knitting, I just have one other thing I just want to mention is some feedback from Kelly, from you, and also from our listeners. So, I was talking about Enzo and how he seems sort of bored and everything. And so I've been doing a lot of playing with him, and we've been trying to work on tricks. And of course I just had a week at the beach where he had, 3.5 hours a day on the beach, and was just exhausted, when he'd come back to the house, which is great. I think there's nothing better for a dog than just being off leash, running on the beach. That's so much fun. Mm-hmm. And then he got, you probably saw the pictures too, where we met up with Jean from String Theory Yarns in Seabrook, and her dog Cooper, who is an English setter. And you met him as a puppy, right?
Right. When we had the meet up there, that must have been a couple of years ago. She had just brought him.
And he's just like the sweetest dog. He's very super chill, very chill dog. And, but very, happy to be on the beach. But we were laughing because he's black and white spots, and he has all these, feathers, or we call them pantaloons, But we didn't realize how dirty our dogs are, because he's, Orkney's brown and Enzo's black.
Oh, yeah.
Cooper's black and white. He has a lot of white on him, and his legs, because of the the foam on the beach, it's kind of green. His legs were green when he's done on the beach. It was very funny. Anyway. No, but so it was very good and sort of therapeutic, I think, for Enzo to be on the beach, for this, to get him out of his doldrums and his funk that he's in. But I hear something, what I've discovered about Enzo in the last couple of months. The other thing he does is, like, for example, this morning I went to type up the show notes on my laptop, and he was asleep on the bed. As soon as I get the computer out and I start typing on the laptop, he gets up and he runs down to the basement and gets in his crate. Every time I get out the computer to type an email or type anything on the laptop, he gets up and goes and hides. He goes down and gets in his crate in the basement. What is that about?
I don't know.
And I thought, am I type in an angry way? Because he is so sensitive and soft,
Yeah. He knows the computer makes you tense. Oh God, she's on that computer again. She's going to be mad.
Have any of your dogs done anything like that? Or does Bailey, are they sensitive in that way? Or they just are?
I'm not sure I would notice, just because I'm not sensitive in that way. I think one thing I have noticed with Bailey, and I find it really irritating, but it is kind of funny. She'll be in the trailer with me, and she has learned what the end of a Zoom call sounds like. So when I'm in a meeting and, doing my Zoom thing, she'll be fine. She knows to lie on her pillow. And now I rarely have to, wrangle a dog while I'm in a meeting. But whatever it is that I say when people are leaving, when the meeting is over and when I'm leaving, she knows what that is. Because she'll immediately get up and come over and start pestering me as soon as I start the okay, bye. Whatever I say at the end of a Zoom call, suddenly she is up and she's poking at me and prodding at me and trying to get me off the bench. And sometimes it's not the end, right? Sometimes somebody has to leave the meeting, or if I have a student, I'll have office hours, drop-in hours for students, and I'll have a couple of students, and then one of them will be done. And so I'll say goodbye to the one student, and then here's Bailey, being a real brat. And I still have a student on the call that I'm helping. So anyway, that was just I just noticed she has discovered what the end of a Zoom call sounds like.
Yeah. Well, and I also, Enzo, similar to that. I have these cameras at the front door, back door, and then I have one out at the garage. And I get an alert on my phone that makes a little sound if the cameras detect motion, an animal, a person, or a vehicle. And so Enzo's also now connected that sound that it might possibly somebody at the back door that he wants to see. Ben coming in or my brother coming in. And so a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times he'll hear the phone make that little sound because there's an animal, a squirrel will set off the cameras, or the wind blowing a branch or something. And he jumps up and runs to the back door all excited. And his tail's up, and then there's nobody there, and his tail just slowly drops down so sadly. So sad.
Well, and that tail of his is like a flag. You could see it. You can see it just kind of sink sadly to them. So funny. We
will get to knitting, but just thinking about those cameras, I can see what's going on when people come to my come to my house or they leave the house, and Ben always is like, oh, Enzo, he's always teasing me about Enzo, he's not that smart, and it's always to get my goat, and I saw him one Saturday night. Ben had come to dinner, and he'd been playing with the dog and everything, and he leaves, and then I can see the video after he had left that he actually calls Enzo to the back door, and Enzo's standing there, and then he goes and he gets down on his knees and he hugs him and he kisses him on the top of the head. So when I'm
You're
not around, it's
spying
total
on
love
private-
is shown to this dog.
Yes, you're spying on private moments between a boy
Yep.
and his dog.
Yeah. Anyway, but it made me feel good. It's just because I mean, I know he loves him,
Yeah.
but that Ben loves Enzo, but he sometimes, I think for me, he has to,
Yeah.
because I just like the dog so much, he has to sort of put me in my place about how dumb the dog is.
Tease you about him.
Yeah. Anyway, on to knitting. I think you should go first because you have a lot to report.
Okay.
Well, you have a darling things to report.
I have some fun things to talk about. So first of all, I am currently right now, this minute, knitting on the Matcha Socks. And I mean, I have it's kind of a story. But before I get into the story of the Matcha Socks, I just need to say that this yarn is so luscious. And compared with the yarn that it's a different yarn from what I'm using to knit my other projects. And so it's really a treat. So this is Invictus Yarns Seraphic. And the colorway is Endless Night. So it's a purple. It's a kind of a blue, gray leaning purple. Tonal. Yeah, mostly tonal, not really variegated, more tonal. But the yarn is 70% superwash merino, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere.
Ooh.
It's nice, really nice. And I'm using it for the Matcha Socks. So this is the story, because this isn't what I was originally planning for those Matcha Socks. Remember, I was going to use my handspun. So I was going to use my handspun, and I got it out and I looked at it, and it's a little short in yardage, and it's a little thicker than fingering, or a little short in weight and a little thicker than fingering. And sometimes handspun is more dense or has more weight per yardage, even if it's the same thickness. And it's a little sticky too. I mean, it was that old fleece that I had. So the yarn's a little sticky, so there's probably some lanolin that could wash out of it that would make it less, a little less weight. But I just started thinking, this is going to be short of yarn. It's already short of weight of a sock, of a sock yarn skein. Some of that weight is probably the lanolin that's making it sticky. It's a little thicker. I'm going to run out. So I changed plans. And so I grabbed something called Capri. I have to look.
Is this in your project page?
Yes, I have a project, and that is called now Not Matcha Socks, because
all right.
because
I was looking for your matcha socks, and now I see this Not Matcha Socks.
Yeah,
okay.
so these are not, well, so let me just say this. It's Bear Brand Caprice. It was one of the vintage spirit yarns that I have, sock yarns that I have. And I thought, oh, this will be so cool. So I grabbed it. It's blue, kind of a navy color. And I thought, these will make really nice navy blue socks. So I started looking, let me just talk a little bit about the yarn before I go on. It's, the label says, magic skein, ready to knit, no balling or winding, draw yarn from center. So, this is that type of commercial skein. But I guess at some point in time in history, that was a big deal. It was a new innovation, not to buy your yarn in a hank. And so...
Oh, okay. Well, it's funny. I'm just going to say, interject that I always thought this was the old way of doing it. The way these were wound, this caprice is wound, and that the idea of it buying in a hank was a new thing. But maybe it's the other way around.
I have a feeling it's a Back to the Future thing. Yeah,
oh, okay.
That originally it was in hanks, and then somebody came up with this pre-skeined idea. I don't know. I'm just thinking, why would they make such a big deal on the band, calling it a magic skein and ready to knit, draw yarn from center, blah blah blah. Also made in the USA. So yes. I don't know what the vintage of this is. I could probably find it online. I've done that with some of my older yarns, figured out when they were for sale. But it's so Bear Brand Caprice. And I got this, I'm pretty sure I got this from the D-Stash room at the Knockers retreat one year. And then it also says all virgin wool. Now, I don't think it's 100% wool yarn because it's super stretchy. And it looks like there's a thread, a ply of something that's not wool in it. So I think all virgin wool means all the wool is virgin wool, not everything in it is wool. But there's no other thing on the label telling the content. And I think that's also an old-fashioned thing. I think now they have to. I mean, I think it's a requirement that you have to label. You have to label with what's in it. So anyway, this yarn is really stretchy. And I thought, oh, this would be cool. I really want to knit these socks. What I didn't realize is that it has a little nub or nep. Every inch or so on the skein is a little slubby part, texture. So I'm knitting along and I'm like, oh, this texture is really cool. This is going to make really nice socks. And then I get to the patterning and it's like realization hits me. I'm not even going to be able to see the pattern because of the texture. And I can't read my knitting very well because it's dark blue and the texture of the yarn. So it's like, wait, was that a purl stitch? I'm taking my glasses off and I'm looking to see, okay, was that a purl stitch or a knit stitch? Because there's a lump there, but I don't think that's the purl lump. Anyway, I finally, after about 2 inches of ribbing and then a little bit of the pattern, I thought, this is ridiculous, Kelly. You cannot continue these socks with this pattern. It's just a very bad marriage of pattern and yarn. Yeah. So, but I am going to continue them. I'm just going to rip back a little. Actually, I could just keep going. You'll never be able to tell that one sock had some purl texturing in it from the Matcha Socks pattern and one sock didn't. You'll never be able to tell that. I should just keep going. So I have about 3 inches. And so I just left them there. And then I dug through the Spirit Needles collection that you brought last year, right around this time when you came when you came for stitches, you brought it because we were going to bring it to the Knockers retreat. Knockers, that didn't happen. So I've actually had a pretty good time with that bag of honestly, there must be over 100 sets of needles in that bag. Yes, in fact, because I needed my shirt there, my T-shirt I'm working on is on 3s, and I don't really have a long enough pair of 3s. I thought, I should call Kelly and have her send me you. Yeah. So I dug into that and I grabbed out another. I used to have multiple. Well, I had a birch set. I really like the birch needles. I can't remember the name of the company that makes them, but I had 2 sets of the birch needles, and over this, and I had them for years, but over this last year, or maybe the last 2 years, so the year of broken foot and the year of pandemic, did a real number on my wooden sock needle collection. I think I had a little bit of stress going on. Yeah. Because I broke a lot of them. So now I'm just down to 1 set. And so the Not Matcha Socks are on the remaining birch needles. And then I dug out a pair of size 0 bamboo needles from that bag. And that's what I'm using for the actual real matcha socks with this beautiful, luscious merino silk cashmere yarn. So, but that you don't have in your project page, though. No, I haven't. The actual one. I haven't put that. I'll put that in before we go to publish. While you've been talking, I have been listening, but I've also been looking at Bear Brand on. Well, I just Googled it, and then it just referred me to Ravelry, and so I'm looking at Ravelry. There's all kinds of yarn on there, but I do not find Caprice. There's all kinds of, there's angel crepe and there's petite knitting worsted. I don't know what that is. It says it's sport weight. But there's something called deluxe.
crepe Villain,
Oh, wow.
Cosseline. There's all kind. There's 3 pages of yarn. There's something called Evermatch. Evermatch Baby Zephyr. There's something called Gigantic.
Wow.
Feather Glow. Lady something or other. I can't read it. Heather Lane. Anyway, there's a
gosh.
ton. There's 3 pages of yarn on there.
Okay.
But there's no information about when it was made. It might be I may have to find a it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Ravelry has everything on there. People have all kinds of
Well, in one of the yarns I have some silk yarn that I bought from somebody who was destashing when I was in the weaving class, and I was able to find a newspaper ad. I just Googled and was poking around trying to figure out, how old this yarn really was. Mm-hmm. And I found a newspaper ad, and I don't remember now what the year was. But, I was able to find out how old the yarn might have been. I mean, that doesn't tell me that it wasn't sold after that date, but it was kind of fun to see the newspaper ad for that particular yarn and know, at least when it was being advertised in a newspaper. So it gives you gives you an idea anyway. So, but yeah, it's weird to knit with because it's so stretchy. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be a nice pair of socks that Caprice lumpy sock yarn. It's fairly thin. It's a light fingering, I would say. It's a light fingering, but with the texturing, it works with the size 0. The size 0 needles. So it reminds me a lot, and this brings me to my mending part of the episode. Do you remember the Kobasi sock?
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of the Kobasi sock.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember why I was poking around. Maybe I was digging around for things to use for the frog and toad, which I'll talk about in just a bit. But I uncovered, I think I'm so virtuous with no unfinished objects, and, I don't have like piles and piles of things that need to be mended or projects that I haven't woven in the ends and they're just sitting there waiting. Not true anymore. Or maybe it was never true. I just had this idea. Anyway, I dug out, I found this bag of socks that needed to be mended. And in the socks, in this bag, are my Kobasi socks. So they are like a turquoise and a red-orange. Mm-hmm. And I striped them opposite. So like I started one of them with the red-orange cuff, and I started the other one with the blue cuff, turquoise cuff, and then I striped them. And I did toes and heels also in the same colors. Really fun. I enjoyed doing them. I really liked knitting with the yarn because it was so stretchy. But once I wore them, I thought one of the toes was too short. And then when I looked at it, I realized, I had, I don't know, probably 1/4 of an inch less in one toe than another toe. I'm not sure how I did that, but maybe when I lined them up to measure them against each other, I lined the stripes up evenly. Yeah. And they were alternating stripes of about 1/4 inch. So that's probably what happened. So anyway, when I wore them and found that one of them was uncomfortable, I put them away to rip out the toe of the one sock. 3+ years ago. I don't even know. It was a long time ago. Anyway, I found this and I have to repair them. I did start to take apart the toe of the one sock, but I haven't done any of the knitting. But the Kobasi is not quite as stretchy as this Bear Brand Caprice. It's more stretchy. It's got to have elastic in it. I can't imagine how it's 100% wool. So yeah, it just doesn't say that on the pattern. And then the other thing I found in this bag were a pair of cotton socks that needed to be mended. So I mended those. And those I made, oh my God, my nieces were, they're all in their 30s now, I think, even the youngest one. And they were...
Okay, that's shocking.
I know.
Really.
They were in high school.
I'm sorry.
I think they were in high school or maybe
I
younger.
remember when the oldest was born.
I know. It happens.
Okay,
though.
let's not go down that path.
Children grow up, your own included.
Gosh
right?
darn it.
Yeah. So anyway, the cotton socks I found needing repair, I made for myself a long time ago. So I repaired those. And then I have a pair of wool and silk socks, pre-Ravelry. I think this is hazelnuts. And so I have to repair the heel on one of them, but the other one is going strong. So I started with a duplicate stitch, and I think I'm actually going to cut out the heel and like just pick up stitches and just re-knit the whole heel, because the threads are it's really threadbare. I can't remember now if it actually had a hole or if it had just become so threadbare that I put them in the mending pile. But these are one of my favorite pairs of socks, all ribbing, all the way down on the top of the foot, and super felted. I mean, it's washable wool, but they've been around a long time, so they're kind of felty, but they're really comfortable, and I remember really liking them, and that's why I didn't just toss them. I put them in the mending bag. So I have one pair mended, one pair started, and then the Kobasi socks. The Kobasi socks they don't need mending. They just actually need finishing. That's all the socks that's happening. A lot of sock stuff is happening. And then the other thing is...
Okay, I'm gonna interrupt for just 1 minute.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to your the other sock, the Caprice.
Oh yeah.
So while you were talking, I said I had just Googled it. And so one thing is kind of interesting. This answers sort of two questions, because you remember I had, when I made the Christmas tea cozy, and I was using some yarn from Sears that actually said it was like a C grade or something. Instead of saying it was like worsted weight, it said it was C. What popped up in here is for 10 cents, you could buy an interchangeable yarn chart from Sears. And it says, what are interchangeable yarns? It says, interchangeable yarns are yarns that when knitted by the same person on the same size needles will have the same gauge. Anyway, they are all have groups, A, B, C, D, and E.
Oh, sort of like the Craft Yarn Council, like 1, 2, like what they have now.
Yeah.
Where they?
And then it has about how to use this chart, blah, blah, blah. It goes on. But then on the second page, it has the interchangeable yarn chart, group A, lightweight. And it says recommended needle size 2, 3, or 4. And on there is Bear Brand.
Oh. And
there's, so let me see if I scroll down. What you have you think is it's fingering weight?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this just says, okay, here's also Bear Brand or Fleshers. And there's Baby Germantown, Casa Lane, Crepe Villain, all these ones we were talking about. So I think this is a Sears. Well, maybe it's not a Sears brand, but it was something that was sold by Sears, I should say. And I'm just looking down here to see if I find Caprice. I don't see it.
Well, and it may be that someone listening was the donor of this yarn to the D-stash at the Knockers retreat.
But at the top, on the very first page where it has, the whole description of what are interchangeable yarns, this has got to be from the 60s, because there's a woman and she's knitting and she has a knit suit on. And she has the bouffant hair. You remember the 60s?
Yeah.
You have like a braid that went around the front, and then you had your hair all poofed up and hanging long. This is clearly from the 60s.
Interesting.
So there you go. That's my little bit of research while we were talking.
All right. Well, the yarn that is in the same bag with this, actually, I don't think it came in the same bag, though. I think I put it there. But I have another batch of these tiny little magic skeins called Spinnerin. And it's actually finer than sock weight. And it says it's 6% nylon. But again, it feels very much very nylon-y. It kind of reminds me of, do you remember like the knit shells that older ladies would wear? Really fine gauge knit and store-bought is what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking of a hand knit one, but that kind of crepey feeling nylon knit shell. So anyway, that's what that feels like. And I'm not sure what I'll use that for. I don't think I'll make socks out of it because it doesn't feel wool enough. And it's very thin. I think even with a size 0 needle, it would have a lot of holes in it. So it may be relegated to a weaving project. Yeah. Or it might be relegated to the trash. I don't know. That's hard for me to do. So probably not, but I don't see much use of that. It feels really synthetic. Yeah. In a way that I don't think I would, and fine in a way that I don't think I would use. So we'll see.
Enough of that I was searching on the
antique socks. Yes.
Yeah.
So with that yarn experience of the Not Matcha socks compared to the yarn experience of this cashmere silk merino, oh my gosh, I might have to buy more of that. That's just really lovely. But my other thing that I've been working on and I'm in love with, frog and toad. Yes. And I talked about them before. And at that time, I think I was still working on frog. My goal is to get them finished by this Sunday, which is Easter. I have the 4-book set of the frog and toad books for Faye. And then I'm going to have these. And then I have a set of books for Kai as well. Not frog and toad. He likes.
Okay. You just threw me into a panic. I'm sorry to interrupt again. Tomorrow is Easter?
No.
Next Sunday. The following Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Deep breath. Okay. Yes. Continue.
Marsha, even if it was Easter tomorrow, nobody in your family seems to know. You could just
that's true.
You could just keep going right past it. You don't have to panic. Just
maybe I'll just do that next week. I'll just do it next week and pretend it is.
So anyway. I think it's the 4th of April.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly the date, but it's at the end of our spring break, so it's next week.
Okay.
But I'm almost finished. So frog is finished. Or toad, they're not stuffed, so their heads are still open at the top. But you can see on my project page that they have their clothes on. Toad has his bathing costume, which I made out of kind of a pale turquoise and cream color. And then frog is a really kind of yellowy green color. And he has these gray, brown, taupey, natural color wool, light gray pants. And they're ribbed, so they look like little corduroy pants. They're so cute. Oh my God, they're cute. Last weekend I had my vaccine. And I worked on, I was a little nervous. I don't know why I was nervous. But I was just a little bit nervous. So I focused totally on getting the eyes done and putting the eyes into frog and toad. And then I had a headache after I got my vaccine, but it felt like a headache from doing all this really close work. So I don't think my original headache wasn't, the headache that I had as I drove home from getting my vaccine was, I'm sure, not from the vaccine. I did feel a little bit sick the next day, but all this little tiny close work to make the eyes, I did that last weekend. Made the pants. Now I have the jacket. I just have one more sleeve to go on the jacket, but then you have the details. So I thought I was done with the bathing costume, but then you need to do edging, around the sleeves. And I skipped the edging around the neck because I thought the neck looked pretty good the way it was. But this little jacket is going to need all its edging so it doesn't roll, so the stockinette doesn't roll. There's just all these little tiny details that are exactly what makes them perfect in terms of matching the books. And I just keep getting the books out and comparing my little frog and toad with the frog and toad in the books. And so I'm having a lot of fun with this. The jacket's almost done. I actually bought it's crushed walnut shells that she recommends for the stuffing. I mean, it's one of the things that she has on the pattern for the stuffing is crushed walnut shells. So I bought those. And I bought the ones that have lavender, so it will smell nice. But it's very fine. So I'm really glad I decided to go down to the size 0 needles with the yarn I was using. Because if you didn't have really, really bulletproof fabric, that little it's like sand. That little walnut sand is going to come out. And I might just test a little bit of it with mine. I think Toad is a little bit felted because I washed him kind of vigorously to make sure that he was nice and tight. Frog might have a little bit of gap, but I think he's pretty good. But if the stuffing, if the sand, the walnut shells look like they're going to come out, I think I will just wash him just a little bit more and get him more fulled.
Yeah.
So that he's a little stiffer.
They're darling. And their expressions, their eyes are so...
I can't wait to put their mouths on.
Yeah.
You do that last. I don't know why. Maybe because it's easier to follow the line with them stuffed. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, very, very cute. So those are my projects.
Very cute. So Kelly, my projects, I'll give you an update on what I'm doing. Down at the beach, I worked a little bit on my sweater, the t-shirt that I've been working on.
Oh, I have a question about that.
Okay.
Did you need to buy more yarn?
Well, I was going to talk about that. I did not buy more yarn. It's the Walk Along Tee by Anka Strick. And I've knit about 9 inches of the body. And I have probably 2-inch balls of the second skein.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
And remember, I divided them. So, no, I have even less than that. They're probably about 1 inch. So I have about 2-inch. Say I had like a 2-inch cake left. And then I have one more skein. Okay. And I did not buy more. She has lots down there. Worst case scenario, I can call Jean and just ask her to send me a skein. But Kim said she's making the same sweater, and she, of course, was there with me at the beach. And she said she's still doing the increases of the raglan, so she's not gotten to the body yet. But she did say that the pattern, a friend of hers made the pattern also, and the sleeves are quite slimming. They're not loose, baggy sleeves. So she said you're not going to be using that much yarn on the sleeves. And I have to remind myself, too, that I've knit, because of the raglan shaping, it goes down the shoulder, down off the shoulder, down to about armpit level, right? The
so
sleeve.
A good portion of the sleeve is done.
Right. And then I'm planning on making 3/4 length sleeves. So, and then the cuff, I'm going to make like the collar, which is the contrasting blue. So that's my plan, is to just wait and see how I do. And then also the bottom of the sweater, I'm going to put the contrasting edging on. And I don't want to make it very long. I want it to be sort of mid-hip or a little above mid-hip kind of, and so that I can maybe wear a sweater over it or a short jacket or something over it. So I'm going to take a wait and see approach.
I sometimes panic or worry too much about running out of yarn, and then I end up with extra.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, and I did check my row gauge, because remember my last sweater, that was one of the issues I had. I was using up so much yarn because of the row gauge was off. It was not the same as the pattern. Yeah. And this is correct. So I should be okay.
Yeah.
I'm also not putting in all of the increases. There's supposed to be 4 increase rows where you increase 4 stitches per row. I'm only going to put in 2 because I don't want it. Otherwise it would be, I think, too much fabric around the hips. And so I've knit, I don't know if I said this, but I've knit about 9 inches of the body.
Okay.
So, another, I don't know how long, I have to figure it out.
But not that much, but not that much longer.
No.
Because of the bottom edge.
Yeah. And I think, I was saying earlier that I don't have very long needles. So I think what I might do is put it on waste yarn or get another set of needles that I can put it on so I can try it on and see how it's fitting. That'll give me a better sense. But at the beach, mostly what I worked on was the Abington mitts. That is the pattern that one of our prizes for the extremities knit.
Yeah.
And knit along, or crochet along, or weave along, or macrame along, or fill in the blank along. Anyway, so I finished one, and I knit to the thumb gusset of the second one.
Oh, wow.
So, but they were pretty quick because I'm using it's DK weight, size 6 needles. Mm-hmm. So, the only thing is so when you do the thumb gusset, put the gusset on waste yarn, then continue knitting the rest of the hand as long as you want it, and then you do ribbing. Mm-hmm. Then you go back and pick up the thumb gusset, pick up 2 stitches, and then just knit in the round. You pick up 2 extra stitches, and then the first row after that, you decrease 2 stitches. Mm-hmm. And it does say in the pattern, if you have fat thumbs, apparently I have fat thumbs. No, she doesn't say if you have fat thumbs. But depending on it, you may want to not put in those 2 decreases. And I think I'm going to go back on the second one. I'm not going to put the decreases in. And on the first mitt I made, I think I'm going to rip it out and redo it without the 2 decreases. I think it would be a bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
But they're really nice, and it's a fun pattern. It's really easy. Even though you have to use a cable needle for all the cabling on them, it's pretty easy to memorize the pattern. And it goes very quickly. And there's so little, that I knit a whole mitt down there at the beach practically. So
nice.
A mitt and a half in 6 days. So, and did you see my picture on Instagram that I did sit a lot at the beach?
Yes. The butt-shaped
a little divot
in
the
couch.
Yes, I had a butt divot in the couch. Anyway. So that's it for me on projects. I don't have a lot going on.
All right.
That's it.
Okay.
Oh, and I did not bring my spinning wheel, but when I got home, before I left for the beach, and then when I got home yesterday, we got home midday. I worked on spinning on the yarn that I've been spinning, the olive green or pine green and the bitter chocolate, the dark brown. I spun on that a little bit. So I've got now, I have 2 bobbins of green and 1 bobbin of brown. Yeah. And so I've made 2 skeins, but then I had to, reload the bobbins. Mm-hmm. So I'm almost ready I have 1 more bobbin to spin up more yarn, and then I'll finish plying.
All right.
Yeah. But that's it for me.
Okay. Well, we had a couple of other, let's just do our business, get the administrative business out of the way. And then there's a couple of fun things that I just wanted to share. Okay. So we have our extremities, knit along, crochet along, everything along that Marsha just mentioned. Just want to remind people that ends on April 25th. And so you can knit anything for your hands, arms, legs, feet. Lots of good stuff going on there. And we have 2 prizes. One is a pattern for the Abington mitts that Marsha mentioned. And the other one is the pattern Coffee Socks collection by Dots Dabbles Designs. And that's where this Matcha Socks pattern that I was talking about, that's where the Matcha Socks pattern comes from. The winter weave along is quickly coming to an end. It ends on March 31st. And so that's just a little more than a week away. So not much time there, but I'm hoping to at least get something on the loom. I probably won't even get it all the way threaded, but I do have a project that I want to get on the loom during spring break, during this week. What I really should do is housework, but no. So
it can wait.
That's ending on March 31st. And so if you're weaving, I hope this inspires you to get your weaving finished and get your last woven projects into the thread. So, but then I had something I wanted to talk about that came across our email, Marsha, and I thought, let's just talk about this for a little bit. The Livestock Conservancy sent me a press release, and it was about their campaign, Shave 'em to Save 'em. And the idea is that people have this passport and they make projects out of all these different wools that are from critically endangered sheep breeds. So I just wanted to let people know about that, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. So how it works is you buy wool from one of these rare breed fiber providers, and you get a stamp in their passport. And then you can earn prizes. They have a Ravelry group, and you can sign up to the Ravelry group. They have prizes that they're giving away. You share your pictures either on Facebook or Ravelry, and you can earn things for completing projects. And the more breeds you use, the more stamps you collect, the more things you can earn. And I think some of our listeners maybe are participating in this. And then they have a list of fiber providers in a little online directory, 180 breeds. And I don't know if all the breeds are sheep breeds, because the Livestock Conservancy has poultry and other kinds of livestock in it as well. So the online directory might be all the breeds. It's not just for the shave 'em to save 'em. It's for people who want to buy, who want to buy a sheep for their flock, or who want to buy a particular breed of chicken for their flock of chickens, and so on. But anyway, I thought it was kind of an interesting little thing, and they have a video, and we'll link to their rarewool.org is one quick way to get to their project. And then they have a video and stuff. So I'll put that in the show notes. I thought it was interesting.
It's very cool. Yeah, it's really fun.
I know I heard about it. I think it's been going for over a year, I want to say. I originally heard about it, and I did go on their Ravelry group, and then I kind of forgot about it, and then got this email. And I thought, I'll just remind people about this.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting little fact. It says fiber providers are seeing an uptick in their sales for the past 2 years. So it must be going on for 2 years. A recent survey of those fiber providers indicated that 37% of shepherds had sold 50 to 200% more wool than before joining the initiative.
Oh,
that's
very cool.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, this is great. I've been looking at the page, and I'm going to look a little bit more at it.
It's almost it's a fiber buying time, right? It's
Yes.
almost the time where I start thinking about, I want to buy some spinning fiber, and the summer spin-in will, come along at some point. So I'm going to
thinking this is a little off topic, but it's lambing season.
Oh,
and we follow several shepherds, but have you been following Twin Set Jan?
Yes, with that little Pikachu.
So if you are on Instagram, Twin Set Jan is the account name, and it's Jan, and she has Fairwinds Farm I believe it's in Pennsylvania, I think. Anyway, she had a ewe that delivered 4 lambs, which is, I think, very unusual. And 3 males and a little female. And the female, I don't know what her initial weight was, but she's only like maybe 3 pounds now, or maybe she's up to 4 pounds. She's tiny, tiny, tiny little lamb. So she's brought her into the house, and she's doing these darling Instagram posts, all in first person, in the lamb's perspective of all the things that she's doing. And very, very cute. And she's named Pikachu. And she's so cute because she just has, black around her eyes. Her eyes are black, but then she has all this black fur. No, it's not fur. What do you call it?
Wool.
Wool around her eyes. She's darling, and she's so delicate and tiny.
Yeah. They're fin sheep that she has. And apparently they have large twins and triplets and quadruplets are multiple.
Oh, really?
Multiples are
That's
common.
not unusual. That's not okay. So it's not unusual. I thought in general sheep it was 2. They would have.
Yeah, fin sheep are known for having, I want to say, large litters. That's not right.
Okay.
But for having multiple births.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it's really cute. You should definitely. I'll put her Instagram in the show notes as well, because it's really worth following.
Yeah, she's very, very cute, and yeah. Anyway, but it's lambing season, so we follow 2 other shepherds that it's just been really fun to see all the lambs, and And the business of it, because it is a business,
Yeah.
you know, and just what's involved with trying to keep them alive and healthy, because this is their business. So, yeah.
Well, one of our friends, Kathy Straightfork, she has lambs she has sheep for the first time this year, and she has lambs, and she shared pictures of the lambs that she had one ewe that gave birth to twins, and was not really happy to take care of the little girl twin, and so she's been, you know, dealing with that situation, trying to get the mom to at least feed her. And then she has another ewe who is due pretty quickly. I want to say she has blue-faced Leicester. And they have the biggest, like, satellite ears. Kind of like Bailey's ears, you know, real big. And so it's been fun to see her pictures too.
Yeah.
And hear, you know, what's going on. So it's a busy time for those people with sheep.
But these lambs are so cute. They really are.
And baby goats too. I want to say it was probably in April when we found out that my niece in Seattle had COVID. So I started sending her Instagram pictures of baby goats. Just to, you know, say, okay, here's your bright spot for today. And I would send her and so funny little videos of these goats, like flying around the pasture, or like just like walking along and then all of a sudden just leap in the air and skitter away, like for no reason. Just so funny. So yeah, it's a good time of year to be following sheep and goats on Instagram.
Yeah. So I think that's about it. Do we have anything else?
There's
to talk
one
about?
more thing, and that is the Finnish artist. I just wanted to...
Oh, right. Yes.
It was shared in the Two Knitlet Chicks Ravelry group, and I saw it. And then I started digging around and looking for more information. So her name is Lisa Hietanen. I should have looked it up, the pronunciation for that in Finnish. But she's a Finnish artist, and she crochets all sorts of things. But the thing that brought her to my attention was an article about how she had crocheted life-sized replicas of the people in her town. And they're amazing. You can barely tell who's the real person and who's the crocheted version. And, you know, thinking of doing these frogs and all the little details that you have to select to make them actually replicate Frog and Toad in the books, I can only imagine all of the different things that she's thought about to make sure that these crocheted replicas actually, you know, mirror the features of these people in her town is amazing. So I've linked to her in the show notes as well, her artist website in the show notes as well, and you can take a look. Pretty amazing. Her work is...
Yeah, they are. I'm looking at them now. They're very amazing. They're really, they're very cool.
Pretty fun.
So with that, I think we're almost at the end. And I just have to let you know that Enzo, when we started to record, he came up and got on the bed, and he's been sleeping on the bed. So the typing sent him away,
but the
recording
talking
brought him back. Yeah, that brought him back.
So you must not be tense when you record, Marsha, just when you type. Is all that uploading of your tax documents
yes
has traumatized poor Enzo.
Yes, I don't know if we talked about. Did we talk about that?
No, you and I talked about it, but
but I'm sure
they can
other
imagine
that I've always just would fill out like a little paper workbook that the accountant would send me. And this year, you know, as you know, Kelly, how much I love being dragged into the 21st century and having to use technology. But I did it. I finally figured it out. It took me 2 solid days, probably.
Yes.
With all that scanning and as we had a conversation about this, and I realized what they're doing is they probably have to scan all those documents themselves. So normally I would just send them copies of everything. What they're doing now is they're putting the work on the client.
Right.
They're just foisting it off on that sounds too negative, but they're just making us do the work at this end, so they don't have to. I think is what they're really doing.
I don't know how much of it is safety, but I have to say when I grade going forward, when the pandemic is over and I'm back face to face, or when the pandemic has ramped down, I think I will still have a lot of my students' assignments just be uploaded. I don't really prefer grading online. There are some nice features to it.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that are easier to grade online, but I would always, when I got stacks of papers, I would know that, there was a potential cold coming on because I just collected a whole bunch of tests that I had to grade. And, I would always joke about how I was going to spray my papers with Lysol. I wonder too if that's part of it, not having all of that stuff arrive that everybody has to touch.
I didn't even think about that. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't think about that.
And I know that the pandemic, they've said, I've heard in different places that actual transmission by, touching objects of COVID is not the real transmission mechanism. Still important to wash your hands and stuff, but that's not the real transmission mechanism the way they originally thought. But it is definitely a disease transmission. Maybe it's just my imagination, but I have experienced that, the colds come when the tests come and I have to grade papers. So
yeah. So maybe it is really not just like they're trying to make us do the bulk of the work. It's just they're trying to protect themselves.
It's probably manyfold the reasons for doing it, but that's one. Sharing things, sharing objects is something that people are trying to prevent in the pandemic. So I wouldn't want to be opening a whole bunch of other people's mail.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I wouldn't want to be collecting a whole bunch of student papers if I were, actually in class. I'd be like, no, you can leave that right there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad Enzo is no longer traumatized by your typing.
I'll try and type lightly and test it and see if he, after we hang up, I will try typing on the computer and see if he gets up and runs to the basement.
Oh my gosh.
All right. We'll talk.
Okay, Marsha. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2Us
doing our part for World Fleece.